Hey there, and welcome to week one. So over the past week or so, a lot of people have been talking about protests. Now, I'm not sure I know everything there is to know about this, but I think I know someone who does. So follow me.
Hey, Richard.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Anna.
Thanks for making time. So, for people who don't know you, you just recently joined Sussex, right?
Yeah, in the summer I did.
Okay, where were you before?
Yeah, well, previously I'd been a criminal solicitor many moons ago, but then I became academic. I was a criminal law solicitor, and that's been my specialism. But I've also had an interest in protest law.
Oh, interesting. So that's the reason that we're meeting up today. Are you still a practicing solicitor, by the way?
I've got a practicing certificate, yeah.
So you're going to be involved in the clinics by any chance?
I am involved in the clinic, yeah.
Yeah, so people who want to kind of hook up with you. Criminal
Absolutely.
Justice
Clinic,
I'm guessing, yeah, that's good. So you did mention protest law, and the reason we're meeting up today is because in the background the government has been talking about a new bill. It's not my field, so this is why I came to you. But from what I understand from public discussions, is clamping down further on protests. Can you tell us what their plan is and why, and what you think about it?
Okay, sure. So last year we had the Crime, Justice and Sentencing Act, which was the first chapter of their, attempt to clamp down on protests that they disagree with. And now we've got...
That you disagree with, sorry.
No, that the government disagrees.
The government disagrees, sorry.
Yeah, not me. And then the Public Order Bill is currently going through Parliament at the moment, which has been quite controversial.
Okay, so what does the Public Order Bill do, and why is it controversial?
Right, well, I think I was saying to you earlier that there's a list, the first few provisions in the bill read like a list of tactics that have been used by environmental protesters in particular. So I think. So
what's this list? Is this a list of things that they deem problematic?
Yeah. So a number of like slow walking is covered, which is a very peaceful, non-violent protest, inconvenient for definite, but in the scheme of what a protest might be, it's certainly within the realms of non-violent protest.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think when people think about protests that inconvenience the public, they're thinking about blocking the M25 or blocking London Bridge and people not being able to get to funerals or weddings or to work.
Sure.
So is that what this bill is about?
Well, some of it is. Whether it's necessary is another matter, because there's plenty of existing legislation that could deal with much of this protest. I think the police have been keen to have further legislation, but then, of course, if you're the police, then you always will be pleased to have further legislation to deal with protest. I think the particular concern with this public order bill is that it sets the level quite low in terms of the serious disruption to the community, which is one of the
what triggers the police power.
Yeah, which goes through the legislation, and at the moment, depending on what Parliament decides, it's set quite low as being just more than minor. Well, that covers a lot of protest, and typically we're thinking of motorway protests being very serious, but it's going to cover quite a lot of protest. If it's more than minor, the police are going to err on the side of intervening early,
right?
Which is one of my interests. Previously, I've done some research on breach of the peace.
Breach of peace?
Yeah, breach of the peace, ancient common law power, which allows the police to intervene before typically something violent happens. And 10 years ago, when it was used in particular in relation to kettling, which is something where the police will gather around a group of people and detain them there, and it was based on breach of the peace.
Breach of the King's Peace, though.
Well, breach of the King's Peace, going back even further, actually. Yeah, you're right. So, in relation to that, the way that the police looked at it was, well, is it imminent? The courts interpreted, well, violence being imminent being something that they looked at in a very flexible way. So you might be miles away in London, and they said it was going to be imminent violence
So that allowed the police to
intervene,
Yeah.
even though somebody had not actually committed a crime.
So that could have kind of effects that kind of radiate and deter people from taking what we would consider protests that would be good to see that people are inconvenienced.
Yeah, I think being able to express your opinion at a time when governments don't seem to change, only political parties seem to change, the leaders in control of the government, I think it's really important. And obviously, climate, racial justice, these are issues that are really important to a lot of people. The protest is a method of expressing that opinion in a way that makes other people realise what the issues are.
So more broadly, and perhaps we could have started with this question, do you think that would your position be that protests are inherently important for democracy, and not to go too far down into hyperbole, would you think that clamping down too much on protests endangers democracy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an inherently important part of democracy. I think what sometimes people struggle with is that you might be breaking a law, but although one wouldn't be advocating breaking law all the time, there can be occasions when there's a particular point of view, particular process that is important to bring, and obviously that we can think back to the suffragettes a long time ago, and in the Colston case with the Colston statue being toppled. It's actually an example of democracy in action, really.
Kind of at the field level, almost. Like, democracy doesn't always happen in Parliament, but democracy...
Yeah. So, as a result of the Act last year, the Police Act last year, and this Act, it's going to make it more difficult for those sorts of things to happen in the future. And that stifling of public dissent, is concerning, really. And
So, bring this all together. What I'm hearing from you is that the law of protest, brings together philosophical issues, political issues, but also doctrinal, public law, criminal law issues. So, if someone were to want to learn more about the law of protest, where would they go to?
Well, Sussex University. Yeah.
All right, tell me more.
So, we're running a new protest law module, one of the first in the country. It's going to be looking at these sorts of issues about Colston, about the environmental protests, some of the history, something to breach the peace, in my area. We're going to be bringing in barristers who are interested in that and have been involved. So Tom Wainwright has agreed to come to talk about the Colston case.
It's amazing. Sign me up. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the time.